Hey guys, this is Nathan James Norman from UntoldPodcast.com coming to you with a review of a book by Carole McDonnell. Some of you know Carole McDonnell through much of her speculative fiction. 3 of her stories, I believe, have appeared on Untold Podcast. Also, a number of her books I've done reviews for, and I really enjoy her as a fantasy fiction writer. But she also writes nonfiction and asked me to review for you A Fool's Journey Through Proverbs. What's interesting is this is a nonfiction book, and it is pretty short and concise. I have the digital version in print. I also listened to this book in Audible format, which is narrated by Kevin Giese, I believe, or Giese, I'm not sure. I apologize, Kevin, who did a phenomenal job of narrating this nonfiction book, which is an incredibly difficult job to begin with. But I read through, or listened through rather, I don't think listening counts as reading, but I listened through and read through other sections of the book. And it's really interesting. The book of Proverbs, in a very broad sense, characterizes the world with three kinds of people. The first is the righteous, and those are people who follow after the one true God. Not perfectly, but they follow after him. The other is the fool, and that is the person who just is living in ignorance and maybe should know better or could know better, but chooses not to. And then finally, you have the wicked, who are people that know what's right and wrong and embrace their evil. And what's interesting about Carole's book is that it goes through the Proverbs with the assumption that she has made foolish decisions. From her perspective, her very humble and humiliating perspective of, yes, I'm a fool, and I have made bad decisions with my life. And so it is a fool's journey through Proverbs. And so she characterizes this as, here are some of the pitfalls I could have missed if I had just listened to the wisdom of scriptures. What I enjoy about this book, and obviously nonfiction books can be incredibly dry at times, what's good about it is she brings in a lot of personal anecdotes, a lot of personal history, some of it incredibly intimate and things that I was shocked that she shared, honestly. And so that helps throw the story forward. It just continues to compel you to read about her journey through the book of Proverbs and what she's learned about all sorts of things like life and marriage and love and friendship and betrayal and church and food and diet. As I've said in other places before, what I really appreciate about Carole is she comes from multiple perspectives. She is multicultural. She understands multiple cultures beyond America very well, and even subcultures within America. She is multi-ecclesiastical. That's not really a term, but she is. She understands the different church models and comes from a variety of different church backgrounds and has experienced many of them deeply. She is also unique in perspective that she is a writer and has gone through institutions in order to become a writer, and so has interacted with other writers who are not necessarily Christian. And what I found as I was listening through the audiobook is there were points where I actually paused the recording and I had to stop and think, like, all right, I totally disagree with her on this, but why? And I had to sit and ponder for a while. The caveat I have to throw with any theological book is there is no theological book that I have ever 100% agreed with, except for the Bible, obviously. I will always find something to argue with. What was neat with this book is I certainly didn't agree with 100% of Carole's conclusions or interpretations, but as I would come across something I disagreed with, I would find myself pondering it. Why? Is this because of my own personal interpretation of the text? Is it because of something else in Scripture that I disagree with? Is it just my own presuppositions? And I found myself a number of times realizing that this was just my own personal bias why I disagreed with her. There were other times of saying, well, my hermeneutic is slightly different. I interpret Scripture a little bit different, and not much, but just a little different. And so I would would disagree with her on that point. And at other points, I just outright said, no, I disagree with. And I will humbly say, I think I'm right and you're wrong. But what was encouraging was that more often than not, there were points where I had to pause and ponder and actually come to the conclusion that, yeah, what she's saying is actually right, and this is just an assumption that I've had, and I assumed my assumption was godly, and it's not. And so that was really encouraging to have a book that challenged me in my thinking through the scriptures. At the end of the book, kind of as an appendices, Carole includes a Bible study techniques. If you've been a Christian for a while and you've been exposed to hermeneutics and exegesis, it's probably going to be very dry. If you've never been exposed to this kind of thing, then you're going to eat it up because it's all good and basic concept, and by basic, that is usually the most helpful kind of information. And yeah, so the only other negative thing I'd have to put about the book is Kevin, again, did a great job of narrating the material, but Carole often talks about her own personal life and like her relationship with her husband and her marriage and all that stuff. And so it's a little awkward as Kevin, a male, is describing Carole's husband and her husband's family. But obviously, suspend disbelief a little bit and you're following what's happening. So I highly recommend this book, A Fool's Journey Through the Proverbs. Carole did a phenomenal job of putting it together. It challenges you. You're probably not going to agree with every jot and tittle, and you shouldn't, because the only book we should fully agree with 100% is probably Holy Scripture, not even your own work. So I recommend it. It's short, it's brief. The audio version was enjoyable to listen to if you're on a long drive or you're doing house chores. The print version is actually done very well, and the layout is helpful and quick. And I can't say enough good things about my friend Carole McDonnell, and I would recommend this book to just about anybody.